is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network. Good afternoon. It is Sunday. It is the 15th of July, 2023, and you are tuned in to Guardian Talk Radio 96.9 FM. You're listening to the Political Review with me, your host, Quincy Parker, and I'm incredibly excited to have you along for the ride today. It is a beautiful day outside, but I want to start off the show by doing a public service announcement. I've seen the public service announcement being put about in social media, and I thought it was important enough that I share it here in this forum to whoever it is that has moved the sun from where God put it, 93 million miles away from us. Please put the sun back. It is much too close. And as a result, we are suffering with heat that is almost unbearable. Thank you very much. And that is brought to you by those of us who are baking and boiling in this unreasonable Bahamian sun. This is not the time for BPL to be doing what BPL is doing. But anyhow, that ain't my concern anymore, is it? Yes, this has been an incredible week of, let's say I don't want to say revelations, because, nothing earth-shattering has been revealed this week in our local politics or in regional politics or internationally, but some things have happened that definitely make you think here at home and also in the region and world around us. And we'll look at a couple of those things in the first couple of minutes of the show. And today is going to be special because I have two interviews today. The first, I'm really excited about chatting with a young Bahamian about sort of what it means to be Bahamian to someone of the Gen Z, and even younger than Gen Z. And I look forward to that conversation. I have no idea what the person is going to say. So I'm just curious to ask the questions and hear what the answers are. And then we're going to chat with the acting director of education, Dominique Russell, who will be with us at 5. And that's going to be a great conversation, I think. And so I encourage you to strap in. But not unfortunately, I want to start with what I think was one of the most important stories of this week. And the Political Review, generally we don't shy away from the hard conversation. So I just want to point out that this one it's a little rough. Yeah. So this week, the Bahamas Crisis Center appealed to policymakers to, quote unquote, do what needs to be done to ensure that sexual offenders or sex offenders are held accountable for their actions. This came after a significant increase in rape cases, primarily on New Providence, over the course of this year. And recent sex crimes, including 2 separate cases of sexual assault of elderly women, have brought the issue screaming to the forefront. The Crisis Center director and longtime advocate, Dr. Sandra Dean Patterson, one of the best Bahamians as far as I'm concerned, reiterated the Crisis Center's call for action and the need for swift action by the judicial system to address these types of assaults and to ensure the safety of the Bahamian people, particularly those who are vulnerable to these types of offense. She stated that enough is enough and questioned the length of time, often 5 to 6 years, that it takes for these matters to be resolved. Last month, National Security Minister Wayne Monroe reported that while overall crime was down in the first 5 months of 2023 compared to the same period last year, rape reports were up. On New Providence, rape reports were up over the first 5 months of the year by 64%. Rape reports fell on Grand Bahama by 56%, and reports of rape fell on the rest of the Family Islands by 33%. But the increase in New Providence, a whopping 64% increase, drove an overall increase in the number of reported rapes. I just want you to, I was going to use this, I was going to let this story be our under the radar conversation for today, but I think it's important enough for this to be our lead story in this week's political review. Because even though this isn't a political issue, this is an issue that our politicians have to deal with. They have to wrestle with this issue. Dr. Sandra Dean Patterson asked a number of questions in a statement that the Crisis Center released this week that I would like to reiterate here on the political review. How many more of us will be violated before something drastic and effective is done by the judicial and criminal justice system? When are we going to do our due diligence as a nation on this issue? How many more will fall prey to sexual predators? These are hard questions. Hard because they don't really have easy answers. They don't have simple answers, right? They require complicated, difficult, hard conversations and the implementation of solutions that are bound to be unpopular in some respects. And the fact is, unpopularity is anathema to politics. Politics is it's a popularity sport, right? But at the same time, governance has to balance politics versus national good. And I think Dr. Dean Patterson's questions get to the heart of whether our politics have been outweighing our desire for national advancement when it comes to the way we have been governing in the Bahamas. It's a question, it's not a statement. In fact, I'm gonna go ahead and do the thing, right? Obviously, this being the political review on Guardian Talk Radio, you can remember now we've opened up the phones. We used to do call-ins, but you can call us at 323-6232, 325-4316, or 325-4259. We also obviously always take your text messages at 422-4796. We'd love to hear from you on this, right? To me, the question that I'm posing to you right now is, do you believe that our governance has prioritized party politics over national good? It's a hard question. Meanwhile, back to today's lead story in the political review. You know, the police have identified separate suspects in relation to the matters that Dr. Dean Patterson talked about. But Wally, I want you to play that clip. You know, here's Dr. Dean Patterson talking with reporters after having released the statement. I want you to listen carefully to the points that she makes. Wally, if you could.
You know, we are rapidly becoming what is described as a rape-supportive culture, a culture that supports rape. You know, the blame the victim mentality that we have, like the criticism of the 17-year-old who took a ride. Why was she taking a ride with a stranger? The criticism that people have about what women wear. It really makes no difference. You know, the two elderly women who were raped in their home, they weren't wearing anything sexy or anything provoking. There's a lack of understanding as to the motives that rapists have. And the studies show that persons rape for non-sexual needs. Yes, sex does play a part in it, but they rape to be in control, they rape to feel powerful, they rape to feel more adequate. We looked at a comparison between the reports of sexual violence in the 80s. And for that year in the 80s, there were just over 1,000 reports of women and children who were the victims of sexual violence. If you looked at in the 10 years between 2003 to 2013, there were over 6,000 reports. 6,000 reports of women and children having been sexually molested. And in each period and each year, there are usually more children and teenagers that are sexually assaulted than women. So it is something that we have to address as a matter of urgency. And I'm really hoping we can get that passed and that we can have the establishment of an authority which will bring all of the key players together, all of the ministries and the relevant stakeholders together so that we can stop dealing in silos and really work together, because this is a battle.
It is indeed a battle. Dr. Dean Patterson said the Bahamas is becoming increasingly a rape-supportive culture. That is, a culture that supports rape and blames the victims. Is that who we really want to be at 50 years old as an independent country? Or ever, really? I want you to think about that. Caller, thank you very much for joining us here live on the Political Review.
Good day, Quincy Parker. What's up, man?
Good. Everything is good, thank you, sir. How are you?
Man, listen, Quincy, let me tell you something. I was standing at my door just now, right? And it was so hot, I wasn't sure who that was running towards my door. But when the person get close, it looked like the devil. So I had to slam my door. He was trying to run inside. That's how hot it is out there.
Right.
Monkey foot. Man,
Yes.
listen. But Quincy, Sandra Day and Patterson ain't my favorite cup of tea, right? But this one time, I kind of agree with her. It seems as if we really dragging our feet on this rape culture that is 64%. Jesus, well, what was the percentage before that, Mr. Parker?
See, that's the question, right? See, I'm trying very hard to keep the conversation on a positive playing field, because the problem with numbers is that you can make them say anything.
Yeah, that's true too.
You know, but what she was talking about was, in the Bahamas there were in 2022 139 incidents of unlawful sexual intercourse, or as we call it, rape, right?
Okay, yeah.
A 64% increase would mean that there were that many more cases reported.
Okay.
And what bothers me is that, according to the 2022 crime statistics, there was an 11% increase in rapes over 2021.
Okay, well, Jesus,
Right.
Lord. Well, see, Mr. Parker, I can keep it real. I on the street. You in the studio, right? So there's some things.
But I don't live in the studio though. But okay, go ahead.
No, but that's all right. But you're in the studio now, and we gotta respect that. There's a lot of things that you may be thinking, or you may have privileged knowledge of, that you can't say. But I on the street, so I can say it. It seems as if, even although the last administration was guilty of the same, that under this administration, it really don't matter if a bunch of women and children get raped. That's the way it seemed to me. And I say women, and children. It don't matter to this administration. And thanks for taking my call.
All right, thank you very much, caller. I could never say or agree with what the caller said just now, the last part of it. But he raises the point that what was the percentage before, and the fact was, this is now a trend of consecutive years with rape increasing, with the number of reported rapes increasing in overall in the country. And I want to reiterate what Sandra Dean Patterson said, that the Bahamas is becoming increasingly a rape-supportive culture. That is a culture that supports rape and blames the victims. And I reiterate, is that who we want to be? Just something to think about. And hopefully we can do more than think. Hopefully we can hold our politicians and governance and the people who hold governance in the country, hold the justice system, hold the police and law enforcement infrastructure accountable. They have to do their jobs. They have to. Or else, even if we don't do our jobs, because the whole point of Dr. Dean Patterson's statement is that, see, it isn't just the law enforcement people. A culture is reflective of everybody in this community. When she says a rape-supportive culture, what that means is we're the ones who are blaming the victims and shielding the rapists. Not the police, not the courts, not the politicians, us, we, the community, the electorate, the populace, us. We're the ones shielding our family members or our friends. We're the ones blaming victims and saying she deserved that, or that child know better than that. So of course the law enforcement infrastructure will reflect who and what comes out of the culture. That's just what makes sense. So if you don't like the fact that we are becoming increasingly a rape supportive culture, well then you have to take action. You can't sit and wait for the police or the courts to change the culture. You have to do it yourself. Next up in the political review, Senator Randy Rowe, who is, in addition to being a senator, a consultant in the Ministry of Tourism, Investment and Aviation, said that the Antiquities, Monuments and Museum Corporation got in the way of the ministry's aggressive approach to ridding downtown of dilapidated buildings. The senator, who again is also a consultant in the Ministry of Tourism, Investment and Aviation, made the assertion when downtown business owners gathered on Wednesday of this last week to discuss efforts to revitalize Bay Street. And he said that legislation governing the management of downtown should be introduced before the end of the summer. Rowe said the government had been prepared to take an aggressive approach to dealing with one of the so-called derelict buildings downtown, but that the government had gotten a call from the AMMC saying that that was a historic building and could not necessarily be demolished right away. Again, according to Rowe, this slowed down the process of revitalizing the downtown area. See, this is the danger and difficulty in doing this show. I'm just going to ask this one question and then I'm going to move on. How is the inability to demolish one building in downtown stopping the process of revitalizing the downtown area? One building. And suddenly the AMMC is getting in the way? Anyway. The state of the city of Nassau has been criticized for years, many feeling that if the efforts to demolish derelict buildings have been slow. But Craig Delancey, who is the building control officer in the Ministry of Works, said that careful collaboration among the Ministry of Works, the Ministry of Tourism, and the AMMC is needed to avoid reckless demolitions. Delancey explained that while there are a number of dilapidated buildings in the city of Nassau, the ministry has the legal authority to issue notices for persons to have those buildings either repaired or torn down, depending on whether those buildings create imminent danger or are a nuisance to the public by doing such things as harboring vagrants and criminal activities. He said the ministry has indeed issued some notices to a few of the building owners and is waiting to hear what action they'd like to take. The ministry's notices are normally given out for 60 days, and after that, the minister can take a determination as to what to do. It was not clear whether Delancey was asked when those notices were issued or to whom. Next time they chat with him, I would appreciate it if the reporter would ask that question. Javon Moss, who is the project manager of the Downtown Nassau Partnership, said that he looks forward to the legislation. He said that he was hoping it would be a tool to ensure that people do what needs to be done in order to ensure that downtown remains an attractive destination or becomes an attractive destination, something that is sustainable and where the responsibilities are shared and people recognize what their impact is. I want to cut the next few stories short because I'm excited about the first interview of the show, but I do want to mention them so that you can go and do a little research and see for yourself when you think about these things. This week's political review, and maybe we'll elaborate on this next week. We're going to look at the assertion by Prime Minister Philip Davis that the government is committed to getting reparations from the United Kingdom, not just for the transatlantic slave trade. So I'm curious about what else, aside from the slave trade, the government is looking for. So there's more information on that, and I'm excited about it. Okay, this is so. This is annoying. Ladies and gentlemen, forgive me. The article that I read on the issue of the AMMC being quote unquote in the way, that was something that was in. It was in the Tribune. Was it the Tribune or the Guardian? I'd have to double check. Let me double check, and I will. I'm being asked that question by a very important individual. So as much as I would like to tell them to just wait, I have to answer that question right now. Like station management type people, they get really important. They ask these questions. And you have to do what you have to do. But yeah, I'll double check, and I will bring that information back in just a short while. But in addition to the reparations question, which was in the Tribune of this, I think it was July 13th. You might also look at the statements by the Commissioner of Police, Clayton Fernander, who spoke out about bail grants. You might also look at the Consumer Price Index report. This was in the Nassau Guardian, which revealed that in April of 2023, the inflation rate in the country surpassed what it had been in October of 2022, which, I suspect we could all tell. We could all tell what that was. And finally, the last sort of story before I get to our interview, I just thought it was fascinating. And I think the folks who are fans and listeners of the Political Review would get a kick out of this. Officials in Texas have begun installing a floating barrier along the banks of the Rio Grande River, which they argue are going to deter immigrants from crossing into the U.S. from Mexico. The barrier is made up of large orange buoys and is already the subject of a lawsuit from a local kayak company. So that's what we're going to be. That's what we're going to be looking at maybe over the next couple of weeks, just to get to the bottom of some of these things. But right now, in the studio with me is Chastity Blair. Chastity, come around. No, sit here. Chastity is a brilliant young Bahamian. And Chas, how old are you?
I'm 16.
You're 16. Good gracious. So you're not Gen Z. You are.
I am.
You're a Gen Z?
Yes.
16 is Gen Z?
Uh-huh.
All right. You say so.
I think it's up to like 2012 or 2010 or something.
All right. So I brought Chastity into the show to ask her 10 questions on the celebration of the 50th anniversary of Bahamian independence. So, question number one. Are you, in fact, Bahamian?
Am I Bahamian? I am Bahamian. What you define as Bahamian is interesting, but I define myself as Bahamian because both of my parents are Bahamian and I grew up here.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You said something that will come back in another question, so we'll get back to that. Are you proud to be Bahamian?
Yes, I am proud to be Bahamian.
What, this is the third question now. What does it mean to you to be Bahamian?
To be Bahamian to me means to look at the water every day on the drive home or to school or whatever and just appreciate the water every day. Like, some people will be like, you say I love you too much, it doesn't have any meaning, or you say you like this, it has no meaning, but I look at the water every day. I've written about this in essays and everything like that, and I'm just like, wow. Like, I appreciate that I have the privilege to see this every day and just be a Bahamian in my own country and just consuming beauties. It's great.
Consuming beauty. Okay. Are you, question number 4, proud of your country?
I'm proud of my country. That doesn't mean that I don't have my grievances and things that I would like to change or make better or add, but I am proud of the country because just from the stats, you could just see how great we are. And not many people can go in their downtown city and people will ask you how you are, or people will just be so happy to see you or compliment you and you don't even know each other. You don't get that many other places. This is one I've been.
Are there things, this is question number 5, that you would like to see changed? You mentioned grievances, for instance.
Yeah.
What are they?
If I had to put three, if I had to say 3 things that I would change, they would national education systems. That's the first thing. Because I feel like it'll trickle down to the other points, which are the education of civic engagement for all ages, not just kids, but other people, just pouring into your country and making it better and socially, economically, and all of this. I feel like we need more participation in the betterment of our country. The third thing I would say is probably environment, whether that be cleanliness of the land, of the seas, and just like being aware of the things that we're doing that'll make changes in the long run. Especially how foreigners play a role in all of that. And all of the three of those things.
Okay. So a part of what happens here at the political review is when you answer a question, your answer is often open to consideration.
Okay.
My audience expects me to ask you follow-up questions.
Uh-huh.
So this is still question 5.
Yeah.
Right.
ABCD.
Exactly, right. So you mentioned national education systems. I would like for you to elaborate on that. What do you mean by that?
Okay. What I mean by that, I don't have any curriculum in my back pocket that I wish to give to the government or whoever, but I feel like there should be some regulation and some standard things that should be in the curriculum. And what I'm passionate about is social justice things and human rights and telling the truth of history and just telling the right story so that mistakes don't happen again and all that. So what I'd like to see in the curriculum is just a more interactive way of getting kids excited and like finding new things that make people like pique their interest. Like kind of getting away from the accountant and the lawyer and everything. But if you want to do that, that's fine. But like, what type of law makes you excited? Is it the part that helps people? Is it the part that helps the environment? And just things that are more holistic and less like, okay, we're gonna read from this textbook, like this is what it is. And just like pouring into teachers so that they're excited as well. Because I know like I'm not too familiar with the education. I may be a little critical for one that doesn't participate. So I understand my connection. But when I was here, even at my school, it was just too rigid. It was too rigid. And what is the average? Average?
The average is a D,
Yeah.
but that D only means average. It doesn't mean what it used to mean.
Okay.
But then that's a whole other conversation.
Okay.
Why does a D now only mean average when, but a negative? Yes. Yeah.
But I just need stronger curriculums, get people excited, because honestly, like I feel like everyone likes to learn, but some people don't understand how to learn, and some people don't like the things they're learning. And that's like what college is for, but not everyone goes to college. And even in college, like there's so much to talk about.
Well, that's why we're here. It's called a talk show.
Oh, okay. I'll get talk some more. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
History.
History. All right. That's okay. So national education systems to you means curriculum. It means ways to. I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I'm speaking slowly, hoping that you'll jump in and define what a national education system is, and your definition so far is curriculum, which is fine.
I think it's more.
Oh, okay.
That's the part that might get people sense like outside of curriculum, like the application. What do people call it? I think it's a capstone project, and just taking the learning and putting it with the community. And I feel like when children, I would love to go to the community and like go clean up a beach or something as a part of the class. And then like in that class, like you can calculate the stats of how much each cleanup you did, how much garbage you found, and like connecting the things interdisciplinary learning. I feel is so much fun, and I've only been introduced to it because of my college professor. And the way that the schools in America cross over, some. Yes, I won't make any generalization, but it's just so cool. And it's like, it's not all math. You're not just learning like math. It's like math with a meaning behind it. And so you feel more connected to it than just like doing 100 problems.
Okay. All right. So curriculum, but not just curriculum.
No.
Connecting the curriculum to the community. Indeed. You highlighted civic engagement. Do you feel like there's a lack of civic engagement, particularly among people in Gen Z?
I feel like it's definitely, it's not a focus, I don't think, and that's not bad because, like, people will say like, oh, like Gen Z's too involved in America, whatever. But I feel like we can make our own type of civic engagement. It doesn't. Everyone doesn't have to be for human rights. Everyone doesn't have to be for this, not that. But I feel like as a young people and as a country led by older people, I feel like it's important to amplify what we think is right. And I feel like engaging society with what we think is more important than just sitting back or like falling into a role that will just be stuck for the rest of our lives. I feel like it should be dynamic and it should be something that's changing the country in the right way. So when you talk about independence, I feel like of the 15th independence, I feel like our generation will really be one and change the Bahamas, especially politically, but also socially, environmentally, and all of those things.
We'll come back to the environmental changes that you talked about, because I think you meant more than just the natural environment as well.
Yeah.
So we'll dig that out in a bit. But question 6, what do you think is the role of young Bahamians like yourself in nation building?
I think our role is to work with the culture that we have, with the things that have already been put in place, and really come together, whether that be a big committee or but come together and see how it aligns with where we are, what our values are. So if that means changing parliament, if that means changing parliament, that's what it means. And if that means if that means Xing out some, I don't even know. Like there's just so much, but just taking the things that have traditionally been perpetuated in society, just taking all of it and put it in sections and like what can we change, what can we make better, what can stay the same, what has to get taken out. And people like me, I just started this internship and I'm trying to infiltrate the ministry's summer camps to teach about women's rights. And I think just finding our place in the structures that are already there are important because I feel like we're a very traditional country. And so trying to just like radically change everything is not going to work. And to kind of infiltrate in the different places in society, I think it's great.
To infiltrate overt ops. But it comes to question 7 though. Where do you think the Bahamas is going?
Where is the Bahamas? Some insecurity about where I think the Bahamas is right now because I'm not here all the time. But let's say where it's going. I mean, you always have to hope for the right direction, but from the news, it doesn't seem like it's going too good. It doesn't seem like it's going too good, especially when you hear people talking about murder or rape being bad for their sons. But I feel like we're going in a direction of gradual.
Is that gradual change for the better or gradual change for the worse? Let's call that 7A.
Okay. I feel like I need to do a little more research on what's going on. But what I, good and the bad, good is I feel like more people are being open about what they want to do in terms of if that's who they want to be, whatever, or who they want to influence. If that's like being an influencer or being an artist and not sticking to those career paths, I feel like that's really cool. But I always know that people are scared about what they want to do, but just like being an artist or being a poet or going off and doing what you want to do or coming back and doing new initiatives. I feel like that's really cool. But also the bad part is just the lack of education I feel in the law and socially. It's just dirty. That's bad, but I feel like
It can't be. I mean, it's not good or bad. It's how you feel. So
yeah.
and that's the point of the question is what you think specifically about where the Bahamas is going. And I don't want you to discount your experience because you're not your own.
Okay.
That's not a thing.
Okay.
Often, I think that might allow you a bit more clarity because you're not in it. You see it at a remove. And so I want to double down on the question let's take it from a perspective of social justice, let's say, right? This is something that you're interested in. Where do you think the Bahamas is moving in a positive direction with regard to things like social justice? Which, I mean...
Wait, do you say is the country or do you think or...
No, I'm asking you whether you think, where you think the Bahamas is going with regard to social justice. All right, let me make it simpler for you. Question number 8. Where do you think Bahamas should be going?
I think the Bahamas should be going in a direction of equity. Oh, I think the Bahamas should be going in a direction of equity. And it's not even at equality yet, but I feel like the difference between equity and equality is very important. And just understanding in the real world and through law where and through law where people are at a discrepancy and where people need more help, whether that's financially, mentally, just like emotionally, where different people need different help and where people need to be taken out of spaces and taking less space to help our country's quality of life rise. And to give an example, because I know it's very abstract and like large, I feel like mental health is a huge part of our country that isn't being talked about or isn't being addressed at a federal or at a government level, and putting in governmental institutions to help people with licensed professionals and understanding that men and women and different people take on mental responsibility differently and they need different types of help, and men need different types of help than women because of the patriarchy or whatever. And so I think yeah, so attending to the people's rights equitably where the Bahamas needs to go.
Okay.
Because equality isn't enough.
Number 9, question number 9. What is the most important thing that has happened in the Bahamas since independence, in your view?
What's the most important thing?
Wide open question. Could be anything. I'm just
What's the most different? Since like since July 10th or since the time?
since July 10th, 1973.
Oh, the 50th independence. What do you think? So I don't know what's happening. Um, can I come back?
Sure.
Okay,
Mhm.
I have to think about it.
Okay, no problem. While you're thinking, here's question number 10. What do you want the Bahamas to look like in another 50 years?
I think circling back to the first question, I want the Bahamas to be the extension of the water. And here's what I'm gonna say about that. Extension of the water. You were talking about the beautification or the revitalization of downtown,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that is very important because what was the question again?
Where do you want the Bahamas? What do you want the Bahamas to look like in another 50 years?
Oh yes, okay. Look like so externally, I feel like the revitalization of a lot of places is super important. Just because I've been passionate about it since I was little, I was like, I want to break down everything, just like make everyone in a better home, which is not good. I learned gentrification is bad, but
Gentrification is complicated.
it's complicated.
I don't think it's bad, but it's complicated.
Yeah, that's debatable, but for another time, I feel like externally, definitely helping the government and different places helping upkeep of the island is important. Overpopulation and different things are very pressing issues, but I feel like we can help that. And I think socially, that's a look internally, I guess. Socially, I feel like our minds need to be changed. Different things and processes need to change. And what those are yet, come back to me in 5 years. But I'm not sure, but I feel like there needs to be a new mindset. And I've heard a couple say, like, talks about the weather being an issue for us because of how much time we have to. In different places, different weather is like pressing on the country because they have to do different things. They have to fix the road fast because it's gonna be winter. They have to repair the road fast because it's summer. Or they do this and the third because the weather is pressing them. And here it's just like it's always nice or hurricane only comes a couple times and so we have a bunch of time, everything and we're just relaxed. And I think that's great. But relaxed in a efficient manner, I feel like it's good. And that goes into different things, whether that's changing the laws for domestic violence. The government's not even looking at it. And I know time and the weather doesn't have to do with it, but I feel like the mindset of urgency isn't there. And for change, urgency needs to be things because people need pressure. People need to get pressure applied to them to make the world a better place. And so we need to change socially. Also, economically, I hope that more people are starting their own businesses or helping each other for their own, like our own economic and agricultural environment is also going to be flourishing and like many other Caribbean countries.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to do it for this 10 question section with Chastity Blair. I'm a little cheesed that we have to go, but I'm excited about talking to the Acting Director of Education when we come back from this short break. But I just want to say, Chas, thank you very much for your time and energy. Thank you for answering 10 questions here on the Political Review. I have thought about the responses you gave. And I think that my audience will thoroughly have enjoyed listening to our conversation.
Thank you.
You give me significant hope for Gen Z and the rest of the Bahamas.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we'll take this short break, Wally, and when we come back, Acting Director of Education, Dominique Russell, will join us live on the Political Review.
A lot of folks are wondering, what is the Agrarian Awards? It's an award show to celebrate the people who produce the food that feeds the country. So September 16th, we're giving out trophies and money to young farmers, backyard farmers, sheep runners, goat herders, pea pickers, onion planters, basically everyone. But we couldn't fit all that on the invite, so we put Agrarian Awards instead. Go to adobahamas.org to find out how to nominate your favorite agrarian. The Agrarian Awards, September 16th.
It's showtime.
Yeah, tell them the name they say is running the game.
It's time to attend the Michael Scootery Peace on the Streets Basketball Classic game. Nightly at the Hope Center, Monday, July 24 to Friday, July 28. Then join us for our family night on Sunday, July 30th, 5 p.m. until at the Kendall Isaacs Gymnasium. Featuring all our championship games.
King and his gang.
The Mr. Shipment 3-point shootout. The IHOP Slam Dunk Contest. And the game between the clergy versus the politicians.
It's gonna be epic.
Taking the game's mine.
Sponsored by Radio House Outreach. This event is powered by the Bryce Newbold Foundation. Peace on the Streets 2023.
Don't let go of your chance to win big with Alive on 700 Wines and Spirits. We've got an exclusive promotion just for you. Purchase 3 or more refreshing Click Rattlers and pair them with our Freedom 12 plan or higher at 700 Wines and Spirits. To enter the contest, simply write your name and phone number on the front of your receipt. Then snap a photo of your receipt and WhatsApp it to 242-805-7511. This promotion ends July 31st, 2023. Terms and conditions apply. Alive. Believe in best.
Girl, you see how Cora eye look funny all black up yesterday?
But she say she bumped into a wall when she's running after the churn them.
Yeah, but last Saturday you see her arm was all black and blue, right?
What you saying? You think something wrong between her and Jack?
I ain't sure, but you know Jack is a jealous man. I hear him and Cora last Friday. I hear him say he hear Cora have eyes for Junior.
Now you know that ain't true. Cora is a good woman. Does mind her business, take care of them churn and go to church every Sunday. So what you think we should do?
I think we should report Jack, you know. Cora don't say nothing, but silence hides violence. And we don't want to line up in the cemetery.
Not me. I ain't getting in nobody business. Then Jack come after me and I land up next to Cora.
No, man, we could call a text Crime Stopper. And remember, we can even get some grocery money for our tip.
Remind me again, how does this work?
We can call them in Miami at 328-TIPS or 328-8477. Or when we in the island, call toll free at 300-TIPS or 300-8477. And if you don't have no minutes, use the Crack Crime Bahamas app and we could text them. And the messages get on mix up before it leave your phone so nobody can know what you saying.
So what we waiting on then? Let's go earn some grocery money.
This is Guardian Radio, your station for up-to-the-minute news, intelligent, interactive, and engaging conversation. 96.9 FM. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Political Review. It is me, your host, Quincy Parker, and you are tuned in to Guardian Talk Radio 96.9 FM. It is 5 minutes after 5 on Sunday, July 16th. I was a day behind earlier in the show when I said it was the 15th of July. I apologize for that. For those of you who set your clocks by what I say. And if there are any of you, you should really get yourself checked. Don't set your clocks by what I say. we had a very, very fun and fascinating conversation just now with a member of Gen Z who talked to us about what it is like to be Bahamian, to be 16 right now, and to think about what the country is like and what the country should be like. And one of the things that I find fascinating about these kinds of conversations is the frequency with which the education system comes up. And I think that that's natural because from the age of 6 to 4, 5, 6 or so to about 17, 18, school is where children spend the majority of their time. And it is such a crucial development ground. It is where we become who we're going to be. You know, it gets refined at home by our parents and our siblings, I guess. But so much of our social life is shaped by who and how we are at school. It's fascinating. I'm in a WhatsApp group with 120 of my classmates from the Great Queens College 1988 class. And it's amazing how so many of the relationships after 30 years and more being graduated from school, so many of the relationships that we have amongst ourselves are the same as they were in the school years. And it's really funny to see sometimes. And so as we're considering the 50th anniversary of independence, I wanted to chat with somebody who could talk to us about the importance of the education system, the public education system, as a tool of independence and as a tool of transmitting the values and virtues of Bahamian independence from one generation to the next. And so I think I found the perfect person. The acting director of education is Dominique Russell, who joins me now live on Guardian Talk Radio on the Political Review. Welcome, Director Russell.
Thank you so much, Mr. Parker. Good to be here.
Excellent. So you heard my introductory commentary. Do you agree that the education system is, as I called it, a tool of independence? And as such, and if so, why do you agree that? And if not, then why don't you agree?
Well, I do agree. I'd like to give a little bit of my background so that I will let you know why I agree. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Kemp Road, the 5 Pound lot. And so education for me was a way out of what I considered poverty. Education for me was independence, not having all of the resources I thought that I needed to succeed, and being given an opportunity. I remember a teacher seeing me running around the schoolyard and said to me, Dominic, I want you to participate in a speech competition. And participating in that competition opened up a new world for me. It made me realize that I could aspire for more, even though I was in an environment that, if you looked at my environment and the statistics, perhaps I would not have gotten out of that environment. And it was because of this teacher's intervention, I wanted more for my life. I received a scholarship to attend COB at the time. And I was able to finish my college degree and become a teacher as a result of that intervention. And so I became a teacher because of a teacher. I always wanted to teach. And I taught in the Over the Hill area where a lot of my children came from poverty, abject poverty. And I wanted to give them the opportunities that were afforded me to, someone said education is the great equalizer. And I truly believe that. We want to be able to give our children a multiplicity of literacies so that they not only function, but they can actually contribute to our national development. And so it is important for us to educate our children so that they can contribute to our independence. When I look back at, for example, the Burma Road riot, and when you consider what they were fighting for, equal pay, right, for equal work. But something stood out to me from Dr. Claudius Walker. When he met with the Duke of Windsor, he said, we are poorly fed, poorly housed, and poorly educated. That line there stood out for me, that there was this recognition that the masses were not being educated. And so there was a major thrust to ensure the construction, to ensure that more schools were built, so that students could have access, so that students could have equity. And that's important. It's important for people to be trained so that they can take over the leadership of the country. It's important for all of the skills that we need our children, our students to get, that they get those skills, because otherwise we cannot compete globally. We are not able to advance as a nation if we don't educate our people. And I think someone said it, and it stands out to me. An educated Bahamas is a progressive Bahamas.
Mm-hmm. And the idea, okay, so that word progressive has so many different meanings and connotations and resonances in our country, especially at times like this. So when you say progressive, what do you mean?
Well, for me, when I consider education and in terms of progressive, number one, our people have to have the skills, fundamental skills, first and foremost, critical thinking skills in order to deal with the complex issues that we face today. We ought to ensure that the populace are trained, that they have those skills to be able to handle those complex issues. I also believe that, as I said, we ought to provide training for a multiplicity of literacies. For example, financial literacy. We want our children to have financial literacies. We want them to have health literacies. We are high on the list in regards to obesity. And so we want to ensure that, if you're going to be successful as a nation, you cannot have communicable diseases, that you could be rid of if you know what to do. And so health literacies, we want them to have digital literacies. We're looking at right now, big in the atmosphere is AI. And so how do we navigate? How do we ensure that our students know how to navigate AI safely, but also be able, like I said, to be globally competitive. So for me, a progressive Bahamas is a Bahamas that, or Bahamians who think critically, Bahamians who can work collaboratively with each other, Bahamians who see themselves as environmental stewards, being able to take care of the earth that God has given us is also important for a progressive Bahamas, right? We want them to be people who, like I said, work collaborative. We are interdependent. Even though we are an independent nation, we are still interdependent. We have to be socially responsible. to one another, ensuring that we take care of the environment, ensuring that the education that is received is equitable, is accessible, and of course is rigorous and provides the opportunities that allows us to become globally competitive.
So you are really opening some interesting sort of doors here, because the question has to be asked. As we're celebrating 50 years of independence, I am really kind of forced, I think, to take stock of our national institutions, and I use institutions in the large sense, not the individual sense. And when I think about the things that are important and the things that are fundamental to our identity and to our sense of destiny, where we see ourselves, how we see ourselves, the education system is one that should be the primary, well, not if not the primary, then a primary mover. But my question, based on the things that you've said, is over this last 50 years, has our education system done what it ought? Has it carried the weight? I guess is the question.
When you consider what has been done in the last 50 years, you could say yes. However, when you consider that there are so many challenges, we have a ways to go. This is a system, it's a dynamic system, it's an organism. However, it has so many moving parts. And in order for the system to work well, those moving parts have to be optimized. Every single aspect of those parts of that system has to be optimized to ensure that we could provide the quality education that we want for our children. Like I said, in the 50 years, you saw the thrust of the building of schools. We saw first COB, the College of the Bahamas. We've seen the University of the Bahamas, BTVI, and the Hotel Training College. We've seen a move towards ensuring universal pre-primary education, because that's where the foundation is laid. And so we are advancing in that area. You've seen a thrust towards technical and vocational training, because we know a lot of our citizens, a lot of our children are geared towards those areas. They want to work with their hands. And so we have, our forefathers have done a whole lot to advance the cause. They've done a whole lot to ensure that the Bahamian child has access and equity. Now, education in an archipelago is very expensive. If we had one landmass, it would be so easy, much easier, I should say. But seeking to provide quality opportunities for every single child, regardless of if they're on a key, on Elbow Key, or if they're in New Providence, and providing those same opportunities for children, that's where it's very challenging. And that's one of the reasons why we would have in 2019 started the virtual platform. It's had its challenges. It still has its challenges. Connectivity, for example, is a big challenge for us, increasing that bandwidth. And of course, our students' need for, or the lack of skills for independent learning. We saw that in the pandemic where, some of our children did not even want to come online because it was just very strenuous and it was just too much at one time. And so there are some challenges. While we would have done a whole lot in 50 years to advance the cause of education, we have a long way to go. And why do I say that? We have a diverse group of interests and abilities, and we are tasked with ensuring that we provide a differentiated, holistic education for every single one of them. It's like being a doctor. We are practitioners, and we're providing services to these diverse groups of individuals who learn differently. Some of them are kinesthetic learners, they're auditory learners, they're tactile learners, they're mathematically inclined, they like the outside, and the teacher is the practitioner who, looks at all of these children, determines how well they learn, and then provides the opportunities scientifically, because we want to use sound practices to ensure that every single child learns. And we want to do it in a way, like I said, it has to be holistic. Education has to be fun, and it has to be experiential. And that's one of the challenges that we have faced, that some of our opportunities are not an experience that we want children to have. And we want to ensure that more of what we offer in the classroom, more of what we offer in our curriculum is experiential, allows the student to gain meaning from what they learn, because it's only when they get the meaning that they're really going to learn. And so we want to provide those opportunities, and it is challenging. It is quite challenging, as you know, to put personnel on in every area that we need them. That's number one. And of course, the resources are sometimes very limited. And so we have to navigate limited resources and be creative to ensure that we leave no child behind.
So before we move on, I want to kind of dig down a little bit into how real is this, the differentiated learning that you're talking about, right? Because when I drive past public school, I don't see the teachers teaching class outside. So if there is a child in the class who would learn better outside, so you understand the question. How real is that in the current education system that exists now? Not the one that we dream of existing, but the one that they go to right now today. Well,
to be quite honest, in some instances, we have very proficient teachers who understand that those students who learn differently ought to be given differentiated instruction. Now, to quantify that, I cannot say of the 4,000 teachers, 50% of our teachers provide differentiated instruction. I don't have that information. I do know that teachers, there are teachers who are doing that. There are some of our more developing teachers who are not, but we provide training for those. In fact, our training this year is geared towards more differentiated instruction, more experiential learning. And we're saying to team members, ensure that students go on field trips so they get all of their sensory overload immersed in the curriculum. And so we're asking our team members, particularly because of the pandemic, when we were locked down, we saw not just the knowledge and skills gaps, but we saw communication gaps, we saw socialization gaps, environmental gaps, where the child really was running their own show at home. And so we are now saying to team members, listen, we need to provide opportunities for children to taste, to touch, to smell, to look at, to hear. So sensory overload on the curriculum. And if that is done, the seminal studies have proven when we do that, we are guaranteed that children will learn. And so I cannot give you the numbers. I do know that we have very proficient teachers who are doing that, but we are seeking to optimize that among the team members.
Yeah, I guess I was asking from the perspective just of the sheer logistics of how you would separate out children in a class who learn differently from the majority of their classmates. Does that
You don't separate them. We don't separate them. What we do is our lessons are geared to them, to all of them, towards all of them. What that means, I was an accounting and commerce teacher, and I jumped through hoops to ensure those students gained access and understanding. And you would think that in accounting, you won't have dance and music and singing and chants and all of those different things, but we had it all. And my assessments were not just paper assessments; they were performance-based assessments. But they also allowed the child to express themselves in the way they learn. And so it's about the lesson itself in terms of the strategies you use to engage students. And I've discovered over the years when I was in the classroom, the more strategies I used that were geared towards the way children learned, and I had a number of those in that one lesson. I had an excellent lesson. Students were engaged, and of course, the assessments showed that they understood. And so that's what we are training our teachers to apply. It is challenging. It is quite challenging to teach all of these various modalities in one class. But once you are planned very well, it can be done. And we have proven it over the years that it can be done.
Director Russell, the pandemic was a true, that word alone, pandemic, it means disruption in such a really huge way. Sometimes it's hard to bring it down to that intimate, personal level, right? But the pandemic really caused so much disconnection. And the gaps that you talk about, those are like real visceral things, right? The children really lost 2 years of their lives, whether that's, 2 years of learning how to socialize with their peers, 2 years of learning how to clean up after themselves in a new environment, 2 years of learning how to talk to their elders and be talked to by their elders. Well, it wasn't, as you say, it wasn't just school and academic learning. It was everything. So you've come back from the pandemic and you have the students in the class now. So what's that experience been like for the students coming back after such a traumatic experience?
It's a real, the pandemic. I look back and I say, my goodness, I'm in a pandemic. I have to wear a mask, and I can imagine my team members. But coming back into the environment, I was actually in Abaco at the time, so it was a double whammy for us because of Hurricane Dorian, and then of course the pandemic. Many of our students lack the skills for independent learning. What I mean by that, in the Family Islands in very rural areas, we have clusters of students. For example, you may have grade 1, 2, and 3 in a classroom because the numbers are limited. And so when the teacher is focusing on grade 1, grade 2, they're in independent learning. They're doing their own thing per the teacher's instruction. And so students who participated in multi-grade schools were a little bit stronger in regards to independent learning. The same goes for homeschooled students. They knew how to sit on their own and do as they were instructed by their facilitator, their teacher. Yeah. However, many of our students did not have those skills. They didn't know how to be responsible, how to sit and learn. Can I say to you, I remember assessing a teacher who had her 5 children on their tablets, and she's teaching our children. It was amazing to see what she was doing, trying to teach the nation's youth. And of course, dealing with her 5 children at the same time. It was very challenging for our children. We asked them to be on an online platform from 9 to 3. We had to revisit that. Yes, we had to revisit that because
that's a full day. That's like the day.
a full day looking at a computer. And so we had to provide synchronous opportunities from 9 to 12. We had to revise that. We had to prioritize the curriculum and focus on those foundational areas. And then, of course, not only synchronous opportunities, and then we said asynchronous opportunities. That meant allow the child after 12 to go outside to do a project so that they were away from being online too much because of the mental health issues that were being experienced by the children and, of course, by teachers as well. And so coming back, first and foremost, students wanted to be with their peers. Teachers wanted to be in the brick and mortar because they recognized that we do not do well in isolation. We were actually meant to learn together in community. It is the best way to learn. I think it was Ken Blanchard who said, one of us is not as smart as all of us. And so that collaboration is so important for learning. In fact, it is a strategy. It is one of our instructional strategies, collaborative learning, that allows for students to pick one another's brains. And when they collaborate together, some beautiful things happen. And so what we had to do, though, because they lacked those social skills. Let me give you a good example. A child stepped on somebody's toe, and in response, that child bit the other child, right? That's not the way we want our children to respond. And so we have had to teach those social skills. We have had to redevelop our school pride initiative. So they see themselves as a unit at that school. Yes, you may have come from different communities, but you are now together in one school and you are comrades, your classmates and your schoolmates. And so the development of school pride, so those things like sports and academic competitions, cheerleading, we've had to reinvigorate all of those opportunities so children could see themselves as interdependent and as social beings with the need to function well, to be able to resolve conflicts well. I want you to think about a child who is a 5-year-old who did not have access for 2 years, didn't know how to hold a pencil, didn't have routines that, from 9 to 9:10, we have the devotional time. And then from 9:10 to this time, we do this. This is bathroom break. And so creating those routines, learning how to hold a pencil, the development of fine and gross motor skills, all of that was lacking. And it was a shock for teachers. And of course, we had to regroup. It's like going back to basics. That's what we're really in. That's the mode we are in right now. Going back to basics, focused on literacy and numeracy. And then, of course, like I said, those social skills that students need in order to interact with their world.
Not knowing how to hold a pencil? That's kind of deep. That's kind of deep. All right. So you've come back and the situation is grim. But, well, or maybe not, but I don't know. You got to tell us what if I believe, as I do, that the education system is where we are going to get the citizens from who are going to take the country to whatever its next destination is, then you have to tell us what's happening with that system? I mean, where are we going? You know, as the old TV, movie with Quo Vadis, where the goers to be.
Yeah. For us, to be honest, while some of our, like I said, newer teachers were quite shocked at what we saw, some of us who are veterans, this is not new for us. We have had students who've had learning challenges, and we have been able to move them from those challenges and, of course, develop their skills to maximize their learning potential. And so, education is an art, but it's also a science. There are strategies that actually work to ensure a rigorous education. And so right now, our focus is on ensuring that children are given those foundational skills. And so we are focusing on literacy and numeracy. We would have, through the Minister of Education, instituted a national diagnostic test. This is the first one that has ever been done in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, where we tested every single child. And we have discovered that 40% of our children need intervention in some form or the other. And education is such a science where you can look at the area where a child is not functioning, and you could provide targeted, personalized learning for that particular child. And so what we're seeking to do, and what we've started already, is we have pull-out programs for those children who are struggling. We have recruited 22 special education teachers to provide opportunities to make sure we're inclusive of those students. And then, of course, inclusive in terms of ensuring that every child has access. We have also asked our team members to be providing training for those priority areas, literacy and numeracy. However, we cannot just focus on the challenges. We have to provide a rigorous education that allows for our students who are not struggling, they're doing quite well, that they are given those advanced opportunities, unconventional opportunities, like our AP program that gives students access to college education while they are in high school, because we want to ensure that we can compete. We don't just want to rebuild the foundation, but we want to exploit our children's brilliance. We believe that we have some brilliant minds in public education, and we want to ensure that those children do well, and they have been doing well, and we just want to continue that.
Yeah. I always remind people who, when we get into the public versus private school, debate, which happens every so often, it flares up every now and again, that as long as I worked at the Bahama Journal / Love 97, and then when I came to work at the Nassau Guardian, I worked directly for someone who went to a public school. So, and she's one of the most brilliant journalists in the region. So my own experience has been, my mommy was, mommy taught in public schools exclusively for an entire career. I've known so many of her students who are brilliant people. So I've never personally had that feeling that there was a difference in academic ability between a public school student and a private school student. But I have seen the difference. I've seen the difference directly in what the frankly speaking, the difference money makes in the process. Money makes a tremendous difference in the ability to engage the child, in the opportunities the child has access to, in the quality of instruction, and even in some cases, So yeah, I believe that the public schools definitely are competing or are competitive with the private schools, but
We're educating the Bahamian populace. For me, it like you, I don't see a difference. What my focus is on that when we would have left the scene, that our children can navigate, they can lead their country, they can. We can produce the Rhodes Scholars as we've done, the NASA scientists, the CEOs, the doctors, lawyers, teachers, the unconventional careers that our children are able to work together to advance our national identity. And in order to do that, we have to work together. We cannot put one against the other. Peter Senge said it, if one succeeds, all have to succeed. So our focus is to ensure that not a student, not one child, excellence for every child in every class, every community, every school, that all of them are given those quality opportunities. That's the goal for me.
Yeah. So the pull-out programs and all of these things associated with the Renaissance project, right? What can you? I don't know if those details are publicly available, but can you tell us? Can you give us any detail as to what they found? What the remedies that have been prescribed are? Are they working? And I guess I kind of have to ask also. As graduation approaches, about some of the kids, all the children this year who will receive the new high school diploma, which will have been awarded based on the amended criteria as amended by the commission over the last. So those two questions I want to make sure I get in before I let you go. So yeah, let's start with the Renaissance thing.
Renaissance, we discovered, like I said, 40% of our children need major intervention in some form or the other. In some instances, math and reading comprehension. In some instances, the students were better at literacy, the reading, and not the math, and so vice versa as well. And so our teachers, I'm glad, were not shocked because it meant that, they were proficient in their duties. And in some instances, some of them were already utilizing the strategies that Renaissance proffered. Renaissance also gave us not just the testing of all of our children, but were able to provide us, like I said, the personalized supports for every single child. Each child was given a roadmap. These are the issues. These are the strategies. And one of the programs that we're using is Nearport that allows for the use of these strategies. And let me tell you what is so wonderful. Not only can the teacher utilize the strategies, but the child can, if they're on their own, on their tablet, they are given a lesson. And of course, they are assessed. If they are not able to successfully or correctly complete the assessment, the lesson is redone in a different way. It is amazing. And that it allows them to work at their own pace. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Yes. And so what we're seeking to do, though, because we want to...
I'm sorry, Director.
Go ahead.
To be clear, there are 160 public schools.
158, yeah.
Right. So you are saying to me, and by extension to my listeners, that every child who was assessed in that 158 schools was given an individualized plan.
Yes, sir.
Every single one?
Every single one. Individualized plan for their learning. And we normally do it with the special needs students, but it's an individual education plan for each student. Now, here's the challenge, right? The challenge is you still have that one teacher in that classroom with 30 children. That's the challenge. And so you have to sometimes group those children according to ability so that they could work on their own. But what we're seeking to do is bring in our partners. We have some partners on the outside who come in and sit with children so that while they're on their tablets, they can go through the plan. We want to make sure that every student actually is given the opportunity or actually utilizes the lesson on that tablet. That's where the challenge occurs. Because you have some students who you can leave them to do their work and they will do it. And then, of course, you have those ones, as soon as you turn your back, they're doing something different. And so that's where our challenge is. We are seeking now to, I guess you could call it optimize. We want to help our teachers by bringing in the specialists who will provide the pullouts, but also bringing in our partners, our civic organizations who help us by ensuring that they could also sit with our children and assist them in their plan. Okay. And we're going to provide training for parents because we have to engage parents. Parents have to know that their involvement is critical if this is going to be as successful as we want it to be. It is critical. They're the first teachers. And so when those children are home, we want them engaged as well.
Okay, I thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt it, but I did. So sorry about that. But you had been talking about you were telling me about the Renaissance, and the next step, I guess, was after the plan, after the individualized plans. What's next?
After the individualized, but not just after, actually, along with the individualized plan, is a review of our curriculum. We have met with teachers anecdotally, and they've said, we're doing too much. We've reviewed our GLAT scores, for example, for the last 10 years. And, we've seen where, in some instances, teachers were not able to complete the curriculum. Not being able to complete the curriculum is a serious thing, and you're testing on that curriculum. Mm-hmm. And so teachers have said to us, we need to take some of this content out, and so we're looking at ways of doing that, ensuring, of course, that we leave no gaps in terms of our students' knowledge and understanding, but also looking at how we can prioritize to ensure that what our children need, we are actually giving them. What they are interested in as well, according to how they learn, we're giving them. And so we are reviewing our curriculum. We have over 26 of them. And so we're seeing areas for reform, opportunities for just review, opportunities to transform the curriculum.
It seems it's almost scary to ask, but and the reason it's scary is I've been a journalist for more than 30 years, right? I think the last time I counted was 7 different iterations of curriculum review that I counted over the years, right? So how does it go from this review process to being real, to being, here's the new curriculum?
From policy to practice, to be honest with you, you have to create the buy-in. That's number one. You have your practitioners on the ground, and unless they are involved in the process, you won't advance any curriculum. You won't be able to. And so we ensure that they are a part of the process. They help us with that curriculum cycle. And while you've seen 7 iterations of particular documents, it is important for us to revise on a regular basis, because the world is changing so quickly. We're now talking about Chat GPT, and we're talking about AI, artificial intelligence, coding, robotics. And so we have had to keep pace. We don't want to be behind. In some areas, we are behind. We have to catch up. And so we have engaged our partners, corporate partners, the Bahamian populace, our teachers. We have done some research of other countries to see where they are. All of those coming together to inform our curricular documents. And we do that because we don't want to keep pace. We want to be ahead of the game. But in order to do that, we have to ensure that our team members, who are the practitioners, the instructional leaders in their classroom, that they are a part of that process, because they're the ones who have to implement the policy. So there was a very good question. That was a good question, because sometimes you can have a policy way up here and it's not done in practice. And so we also then have to ensure that we monitor the implementation of the curriculum, that we assess on a regular basis, that we provide training opportunities to build professional capacity, and that we allow for exposure across all of those areas I talked about, all of those stakeholders, so that we have the best opportunities for our children. I cannot say we're there yet. The question, are we there yet? No, we are not there yet. Will we ever get there? That is a good question, but we are definitely moving in the right direction in regards to advancing our initiatives.
So how do you reconcile your desire, and we only have like 7 minutes left, so I don't know how much of this we could get, but you talk very passionately about making sure that we are not left behind robotics and coding and AI and so on and so forth. How do you reconcile that desire with the contention of the teachers, the very reasonable contention of the teachers, that we're doing too much? We got to take some of this stuff out. So, how do you balance?
It's a daily challenge to balance, because you have to, like I said, create the buy-in. And we create the buy-in by exposing our team members to these new technologies first. Because once you expose them, especially our younger teachers, they want to participate, and then of course they want to teach it to our children. And so how we balance it is we ensure that we review the curriculum on a consistent basis, so that we could take out and add in. And sometimes we pilot a program just to see, how it will be received by our students and our team members. So it's a daily challenge to balance. It really is.
It must be. And I would love to know. I guess I would love to be a fly on the wall, during the conversation about what you're taking out, because I can't imagine anything goes lightly, right? Because
no, it doesn't. Not with educators.
Somebody has to fight for it to be there in the first place, right?
Yes, and they fight. Sometimes they fight. Sometimes we want some things, but we want to keep the old, because I won't say set in our ways, but we just have a worldview about things. And so that's why I say, you have to create buy-in. That's very key to advancing any new initiative, because you have first order change. And then, of course, for some people, it will be a second order change, which means it's going to be very challenging for them to change their mindset. And so it is a daily challenge among educators. These are professionals. They know what works. And you got to come well planned, in order to advance any initiative amongst our educators.
Yeah, for real. So there are literally 5 minutes left, and I still have 7 or 8 questions to ask, but that's clearly not going to happen. Let's jump to the diploma, the high school diploma. You are the director, the acting director of education. One of the things that I think public discourse sometimes fails to take into consideration, especially when there are people involved, when people are the subject of the conversation, right? I think sometimes we forget that the people we're talking about live among us and that they are a part of the community just like we are, right? So I find it, I understand the concern that people have expressed or had expressed about the changes to the diploma somehow representing a lowering of the standard to achieve the high school diploma. But to me, if that were true, you would be saying that another group of Bahamians doesn't care about the academic or the standard of accomplishment that our children have. And I can't personally assign that level of disregard for our children to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to ask the question.
Yeah.
Are the changes to the Bahamas National High School Diploma representative of a lowering of the standard for academic achievement or for any kind of achievement for our students?
No, it's not, Mr. Parker. Let me put it like this. When you consider a table and you have seats at the table, while the high school diploma that was introduced in 2014, it's excellent. We always envisioned that we would make changes. Why? Some students who had a right to a seat at the table were not given that right by virtue of the programs that they were engaged in. I'll give you a good example. We said math, language, science, and a social science, RK or social studies. But what about the child who took technical drawing? What about the child who took a family and consumer science, BJC? So these children who learn differently, who, because of their learning modality, their interests and skills, were not given a seat at the table. And so the commission said to us, they must have a seat at the table. We're still asking for math and language, but because they learn differently, because they are kinesthetic learners and they learn with their hands, and they got a BJC with the passes that you were ignoring, you cannot ignore any longer. That's the first thing. Then secondly, we look at students who, if you're riding a bike, some of us learn to ride the bike without the training wheels, right?
Mm-hmm.
But some of our children need the training wheels. And so we want to include our students who learn differently in terms of our special needs students. So once the subject that they're bringing to the table has been assessed by NACOB and evaluation and assessment, that will be included as well. There's no lowering of the standard when you provide a training wheel for a student to be able to get to ride that bike. That's not lowering of the standard. That's providing a scaffold to get them to the place that they need to get to. And for our children who have those learning disabilities sometimes or learning deficiencies, we are providing those opportunities for them, so that when they take those assessments, they too can have access to a Bahamas high school diploma. So it's not a lowering of the standard. It is ensuring that we widen the opportunities that allows for more children to have a seat at the table.
Acting Director of Education, Dominique Russell, it's 6 o'clock, so I have to let you go. I am convinced that there's another 3 hours worth of conversation here. So I'm going to probably ask you back another time. No problem. But thank you very much for your candor and your time with us today. here on the Political Review.
Thank you too.
Folks, that's going to do it for us this week. We'll be back next week. And don't forget, we got something special coming up in the next couple of weeks. You got to stay tuned. And we will see you next week. Wally, great job. Thank you. And Let's Talk Together Live in English is up next with Lady T here on Guardian Talk Radio. See you next week.